the mayor of Perugia, the Italian city where British student Meredith Kercher was murdered 17 years ago, has apologised to locals for allowing a TV series about her death to be filmed there. It's been reported that the crew were met by angry residents holding banners with the words "Respect for Meredith." So you can understand it. It's still a living memory for a lot of people in that community. And, you know, there's such an appetite now for true crime type dramas, but it's still a form of entertainment for the rest of us. You tend to forget about those that are genuinely still affected by it. And certainly the residents of this town are not happy that this is happening.
I think our fascination with true crime has become a bit perverted. I think that there is a way of telling stories, and a lot of these stories obviously, you know, do justice by the victims. Like you say, you have to remember someone's life was taken here, and in this town it affected the local people greatly. And they're probably at some point just trying to move on from this, and it just brings it all back, doesn't it? There's two issues here. One is, you know, shooting this in the exact location where the terrible murder happened, and one telling the story at all. I think it's a bit weird that Amanda Knox is producing it. Like, personally, for me, I think it's a bit of an odd fit. But then I just think there's a lot of these shows that have done really well. The Menendez brothers stories everywhere. And then you see on TikTok, people are doing, like, Menendez brothers fashion and, you know, Menendez brothers fashion core. Like, it all just gets a bit glamorised. The same with to the Ted Bundy doc, the same with, I forget his name now, the other really big doc. Dharma. You know, people were like the Dharma glasses. And it's a bit like, guys, we are actually talking and watching someone's child that was murdered. You know, it was someone's child, someone's siblings, you know, and I think we kind of dehumanise it. But I actually saw a really interesting piece by a psychiatrist. I saw on TikTok or Instagram, he was talking about it. If you break it down, its core, as human beings, we've always had a bit of a fascination with death and things like that. Because if you think back in the olden days, they would hang people in a town square, they would joust the death, they would be gladiator type. We actually would queue up as humans and watch one person murder another person. And this is just a kind of, I think, a civilised extension of that. If we're being really honest about it, this fascination we have with it, I think it comes through our history of human development. At every time there has been that fascination, it's just presenting itself differently. And I think watching a lot of these really violent things is not good for your brain. It's not good for your emotional state. But I think there's a place for it, but I think we just have to... the respect for the dead and their families, it has to be taken a little bit more into account, I think. I mean, we all know Denise, obviously. She's a big fan of sort of the true crime thing, and she's a slightly different perspective, doesn't she, Brenda? Because she sort of feels like sometimes people watch it because they want to see a resolution.
Yeah,
they want to see justice being done.
I don't have a fascination with death because there's been so much death in my life, so I'm totally not for it. I don't do horror films. I'm a romantic period drama. Give me a comedy, make me laugh. You know, I found myself getting palpitations from just watching Harry Potter because I don't know what's coming next, and it's like, you hear the eerie music. And I was watching something on telly the other day, and I literally heard my heart beating through my ears, and that really freaked me out. All of a sudden, I could just feel my heart beating, and then I was lying on the pillow watching the telly, and I could hear my heartbeat pounding through, and I just switched it off. I didn't even know what it was, but just the music can set me off on something. So I totally agree. It's, you know, in your psyche, there is something that can turn you onto that. It switches me off, and I don't agree with this filming. As you say, it's, you know, that's someone's daughter. I think it's very disrespectful to the family that are left still grieving, and they will still be grieving. They'll be grieving their daughter forever, and I think it's very insensitive of her to do that, and it kind of shows her... In my opinion, it kind of shows that she didn't have any... Even though she might not have done it, I say might, she might not have done it, there's no remorse there for her friend. That's supposed to be her friend.
She was found not guilty, we know that, but it was such a huge case, I think, at the time, that we all kind of remember various images from that, and so it sticks with a lot of us, never mind the locals, indeed, from the area that are still kind of suffering from it. They have come out to say as well that for a long time their university applicants were down, and, you know, people didn't want to come to visit anymore. It was sort of associated with this terrible kind of murder, which was an awful thing, and they find it difficult to get over. It's different when we're talking about something very, very historical. We're talking hundreds of years ago. We see documentaries about, you know, royal family members from how many centuries ago. But when it is still a living memory, I think that's what makes it tough.
I think it'd be interesting to know how many of these true crimes shows where the actual family are the ones who are saying, yes, we want this story to be heard, or whether it's just other people saying, oh, this would be a good watch, this would be a good, you know, this would do well on a channel or so on. And I think, like you were saying, Olivia, I think we're in a state of emergency because there's so much people that are living off trauma porn. That's what I think it is. Like, anything that's traumatic, it seems to sell. And it makes me think, what is that? I am one of those people. What is that putting out into the universe? I've never been someone who's loved true crime. And I remember having a conversation with Denise as well, what you were saying about, you know, how sometimes people watch it because they want to see, like, an end result. But where we live right now in the UK, anywhere in the UK, in the world, we are seeing true crimes every day when the news comes on. So I don't understand the fascination. So that was one of the reasons I don't engage in it. But I've got to be honest, because it's out there so much, because it's on every channel, any time of the day, you've got access to it. I found myself one day putting on a podcast and listening to one, you know, about a young child. And I think there was a part of me as a social worker that wanted to hear where the agencies and, you know, holistically what failed, why it didn't work. And that was the excuse for that one. Then there was another one. And I found myself watching that, and it was about a family. And I was convincing myself, oh, I'm looking at it, the family, you know, dynamics and so on. And then there was one day, I think it might have been one of the Menendez brothers.
Yeah.
And that came on, and I started to watch it because everyone was talking about it. And I just stopped myself, and I said, what is going on? And it made me realise how strong the power of media is, or what is trending at the moment, and what you open your mind to. It shows you through anything. Holding the screen too much, how much it opens your mind to that. And I said to myself, I don't want that energy in my house. I felt like I was being groomed by it. And I just kind of took myself away from it and tried to have a conversation with my children as well about not getting too delved into those kind of topics, because the reality, like all of us have said, it is someone's loved one. And if we continue going down this route where this is the only thing we have open access to continuously, it is glamorising it. And we have to understand there is some people that enjoy this for the wrong reasons. And that's why there's so much crime and violence. Even at the moment, how do we not know it's not contributing to the state of the society that we're in now?
Where we're at. Well, the Menendez brothers, it's interesting because you say there's such an appetite for that case, I think, at the minute. And people want to hear all the different angles, and it's a little bit like this Amanda Knox drama. And like we said, I mean, she was acquitted of murder, we know that, but she is co-producing, so there's a slightly different angle to it. So again, people have an appetite for it.
It's going to be biased then from her producing angle. It can't not be. You know, quite often when people make these dramas, no one who was actually involved was in it. So then, you know, people argue, how have you got the right information? Because you've got a bit of hearsay. And the other, it's obviously going to lean from her experience.
The documentary that she's made off of this poor child's death. It's like, why do you keep benefiting off of this?
Lawyers will be all over it, undoubtedly, I'm sure about that. But there is no denying that clearly Netflix and all of these other big platforms are making it because we're watching it.
We're watching it.
So, you know, unless
just
there's
be mindful,
a shift.
mindful of your mental health. Mindful
that's
the
true.
psychological
I know,
impact.
I'm with you. Give me a comedy any day. It's terrible. Make me laugh.